I know the hat looks funny. For those of you that are watching this on video, yep, John's wearing a hat. And that's just me. It's branding. But it's also something I decided to wear because, after all, living forward is about having fun. Living forward is about perseverance. Living forward is about never stopping the process of making yourself better. Living forward is always about learning something new every single day and committing yourself to the idea that learning is a lifelong thing and learning is a life-giving thing. Hi, everybody. John Morrow. Welcome to Resolve to Live Forward, the podcast. Welcome to a beautiful Friday. I am glad you have joined me. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers regarding the flu that I was battling with over a period of, well, I still have a touch of it as we speak, but this journey, this uh, harsh journey at times over the last 2 weeks has helped me with a lot of things in getting stuff done around the house when I had been feeling good, but also finding that sometimes being retired is kind of nice if you need to just lay down and commit yourself to some really good therapeutic rest. Resolve to Live Forward, the podcast, is also a YouTube podcast video, and my YouTube channel is Resolve to Live Forward. This particular podcast is actually produced and then uploaded to Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is a hosting platform. Thanks to Buzzsprout, it gets launched and also tracked analytically, not just on Spotify and the Apple iTunes Store, but on other podcast platforms as well. I come to you every week, although I will tell you just a handful of days ago, I came to you very late in the sense that I was just feeling well enough to actually do the episode that was originally scheduled for a week ago today. Today is the 20th, and my episode on the 13th was truly a Friday the 13th moment. But I'm not a person that is superstitious, nor do I suffer from triskaidekaphobia. Hi, everybody. So thankful for the fact that you've joined me. I appreciate those of you that watch and those of you that listen. Let's recap. Resolve, my power word, defined as one having a definite firm plan of action, has also a acronym structured series of best practices, and those best practices are embodied in the following 7 things: resilience, engagement, service, organization, learning, vision, and enthusiasm. At its core, these are behaviors that are not practiced randomly, they are practiced intentionally. As we have been talking about best practices for you, as well as for me, and for anyone else that you would be willing to share them with. And I do want to note here something that's very important. I am never going to tell you that resolve should be your power word, but I will tell you that these behaviors that I talk about embodied in those 7 letters, I personally very strongly feel you should apply in your day-to-day living. I think they will make an incredible difference in your life. I know for me, I think they have contributed to saving my life to a great degree. Perhaps one day here in the not too distant future, I will talk to you of my journey of living forward after watching my wife die. And I don't seek to be morbid in the least, but I think it's important to realize that the struggles of life And those unfortunate things that you don't want to happen, you didn't plan to happen, and you didn't get permission for them to happen, they happen. There's just something about life where you can't control what happens to you. Things are going to happen to you, and it becomes a case of deciding what are you going to do with what has happened to you. And I know dozens upon dozens of people, many of whom have suffered far more than me physically, emotionally, financially. And they have gone through this grief. And grief isn't just about death. Grief is really something that manifests in incredible sorrow and pain and anguish and can bring you to a sudden, complete, and total stop. And the question that you find yourself asking is, what do I do now? What I did, thanks to my wife and the guidance that she provided me when we came up with our power word and these 7 behaviors, was tap back into those intentionally. Understand, sometimes you must choose. They don't happen by accident. They don't just randomly occur in most cases, although there are those great delights and surprises. But the truth is, living itself and how you look at living and how you look at living day by day is about choices. Now, one of the choices that I put in my power word using the letter L in resolve is learning. As I look back on my life, and for those of you that maybe are hearing me and seeing me for the first time, I'm over 75 and 1/2 years of age. Today's date is Friday, February 20th. And in the month of June, on the 9th day of the month, I will turn 76. I hope I see the light of day. People tell me, hey, you look pretty good for a guy that's 76. As a matter of fact, you don't look like you're 76. Well, there was a time in my life when I thought 50, 55, 60 was really, really, really old. And now they're a distant memory. But learning has been a part of that process. I haven't always been a willing learner. I haven't always been attentive, but I wanted to share with you some things as I was putting together notes about today's episode, and I want to read some things that I personally wrote down and outlined so that you understand the value of learning. I'm using it from my perspective, but I'm casting it to you as something that maybe will be a seed of growth in you, because at no time do I believe you can't learn. The only people that struggle with learning, but they struggle with all things cognitive, are those who have either had catastrophic brain injuries or they have contracted what I call those catastrophic cognitive brain disorders and diseases. I come from a family on my mother's side, as a matter of fact, that has been literally devastated, almost completely wiped out by a genetic propensity for these types of brain diseases, Alzheimer's being at the top of the list, but Alzheimer's in and of itself is not the only thing that is a manifested brain disorder. There's ALS, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, so many things, and they're all tied to the brain as well as vascular dementia and other conditions. Some are avoidable, some are not. It is what it is. But the thing is that I strive to learn because learning is something that creates, and you may have heard this phrase, neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the flexibility of the brain in my process as I've learned it to be able to put us in a position where as we learn, we are growing and creating a therapeutic effect upon our brains, and we're helping our brains to be healthier. I accept the fact that there is, in fact, maybe brain cells that are dying, brain cells that go to atrophy, and that we lose to a great degree some form of cognitive skill, memory loss, things of that sort. Diseases exacerbate and accelerate. But at the end of the day, if you want your life to be a fully functioning, blessed life, you want to let that brain keep on getting stuff. So let's go ahead and move forward with this while we've got a few minutes here on the learning process. For me, learning is about remaining curious, coachable, and mentally agile. What does that look like? Well, curiosity is simply, hey, can I take a closer look? It looks interesting. Going out of your way to investigate something is another way. Coachability is important. And there are people in my particular age group and generation, and I saw this growing up among older adults, where they say pretty much, I've got it all figured out. I don't need to know anymore. There are people right now that I know who are my peers and contemporaries, some a bit older than me, some a few years younger, but they have said, no, I don't need to concern myself with learning that. I'll be just fine. And that's true to a great extent. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that here I am talking to you on a digitally produced video, utilizing tools that are available readily online, as well as resources and programming and applications and software. And all of it is something which I I learned. I learned it. I committed myself to learning it. But I had to have somebody to help me with it. Yes, trial and error is involved. Anytime you put your hands on something and you want to learn how to do it, you're going to do it and you're going to make mistakes. Those mistakes should not be cataloged as failures. They should be cataloged as teaching opportunities. But the coaching opportunities are important too. So I commit myself to being curious enough that I want to seek to know, seek out the coaching and the guidance to understand, and realize that mental agility is part of the learning process as well as doing other things which challenge the mind. There were, for example, during the time that I was in a research study during a 5 year period of time for the University of South Florida and Michigan State University, it was a neural agility type testing process. There was access to a website where there were these hand-eye coordination games. I won't go into detail what they were like, but the challenge of them was to be able to quickly and readily, with time limits being applied, try to complete as much of the work as possible. And it stimulated and made my brain work sharper. That can also be carried through to learning about a different thing, like learn a language or learn to play the piano or learn to play an instrument or get into reading and read into particularly, let's say, a genre that you're not particularly familiar with. Growing up, I loved science fiction. I still do love science fiction, but in recent years, I've dedicated myself to learning personal best practices by reading books about personal development. The educational process of learning more is important as well. And being on the computer has been a part of that learning process. So all of this is really lending itself in the learning process as I'm looking at it here to mental agility. So now what do those personal best practices look like? One, learning something new every day, both formally and informally. Well, formally means I actually choose to do something, go to a webinar, watch one on the computer, turn on the TV and seek out information. There's a wealth of great information available, for example, on YouTube. Now, not everything on YouTube is good. YouTube is wide open and you can get all kinds of stuff there. But the beauty of it is that as you are learning it, you begin to realize that you're updating. For example, as I continue to watch YouTube videos, I've discovered that I can now readily pinpoint where AI is heavily involved in the creation of that, particularly as it relates to creating the image of someone who is fundamentally a well-known personality, but they're being copied. And it does happen. And as I am learning to identify the cues, I'm beginning to realize that not everyone who puts stuff out there on YouTube can be trusted. But there are so many other things that I do. In other words, it's both formal and informal. Openness. Remember in engagement, I said that every day when you get it, you do have a plan and you're going to engage that plan and you're going to engage opportunity, but also the unexpected is in there. What are you going to do with the unexpected? Are you going to engage it with a mind to create a relationship or to learn something or to benefit from something? Yes, you need to. This is the approach that you have where you don't shut yourself off. You don't close yourself off and hide away. You say, okay, I may not fully grasp it. I may never grasp it, but I'm going to try. That's a commitment. That's an intentional behavior. You stay open to feedback without becoming defensive. I'm a member of Toastmasters International and have been, with the exception of a 3.5 year gap when I had a job change. I've been a member of Toastmasters since 1985. One of the biggest things that Toastmasters has taught me is the value of feedback. In learning the value of feedback and learning to identify good feedback and benefit from that feedback and apply it, I've also learned how to give better feedback and quality to people. And it's become a situation where it isn't about pointing out so much what's wrong as pointing out what I can suggest that could help that person to get better. Because the truth is, the business of public speaking is always going to be a challenge. I'll be standing on the stage tomorrow on the 21st of February in Lake Alfred, Florida, not far from here, on a TEDx stage. For the first time in my life, I'm going to be speaking in a TEDx. I'll be rehearsing this afternoon at 3 o'clock with my mentor, going through it for a final time. This speech has a specific body and structure, and yet it continually is in a state of change. The reason why is because I continue to receive the feedback and crave it. The feedback is helping me to get this speech to a place where when I give it, I hope it is at the optimal, best possible quality. So you make that commitment to feedback and you do so without allowing yourself to be offended. That's not always easy, so don't think that I just simply do that. I don't. There are things that we have to unlearn. I don't think we can ever forget them. I don't believe in the I can erase it from my memory type thing, but what I can do is I can properly prioritize it in false, misleading, totally bogus, and realize if I only knew then what I know now, I probably would have saved myself a lot of problems. So we have to clean up our thinking. We have to clean up our mind. That's a learning thing. The more you know, the more you grow. The more you learn, the more you know what will help you grow. And finally, treat mistakes as learning opportunities, as instructors. A mistake is not an indictment of your limitations. And don't let anybody put you under their thumb of judgment. Who are they to tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not capable? I spent a lot of time in my life growing up in my development and maturation, hearing the voices of people that didn't care about me. They only cared to make sure that I was marginalized, minimized, and made to look small in their presence because they were extraordinarily selfish, self-absorbed, narcissistic people. And I've met some pretty mean people in my time. I don't want to be a part of that. It's kind of like the Toastmasters adage that I heard from our program quality director, who is a good personal friend of mine in Toastmasters. He said, when I joined Toastmasters, I joined to get something. And that getting, of course, had to do with learning how to speak, learning how to get up in front of people and be the star of the show in a sense. But He said, I continue to be a Toastmaster because I get to give something. When you can arrive at that point where you realize you're perfectly comfortable in your own skin, that's actually a form of humility because that shows that you don't overrate yourself, you don't overvalue yourself, you accept the fact that you do have value, but you also want to be sure that you share that value with as many people as possible, not to change them, but to let them know you care about their success, and what that success for them looks like is not what it looks like to you. It's only about you helping them find their true purpose, voice, meaning, direction, and all the wonderful things that happen when people work together to achieve greater objectives collectively as well as individually. So, the living forward truth in this process is simply the moment learning stops, stagnation starts. I've heard a person say the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. And I will agree with that because it's kind of like you're just waiting to die. Okay, I've got enough. Well, what does that look like? Well, for me at this particular time of my life, since I am a widow, uh, I could easily park myself in the house. Not to say that I do not take days where I just simply have a mental health day off and allow myself to enjoy some self-indulgence. But the truth is, if I say enough's enough and I don't want to be a part of any of this stuff and I just start dropping out of things, basically saying, I quit. And by the way, let me point something out here. Some things you need to quit because after a while you have to set boundaries. And boundaries are important. And I may talk about boundaries at some point because I actually have that book. And that book has been very helpful for me in understanding how to say no when I'm doing too much. But the principal thing is that you stop living when you stop learning. Stagnation will cause you to become less acute in your five senses: see, hear, smell, taste, touch. It will also have an effect upon your emotional welfare. And your emotional welfare is very important because you have to have meaningful purpose and vibrancy in your life by keeping that mindset of living forward. And in living forward, it's not about it always being a good situation. It's about it being the thing that drives you even when you don't feel like it. All in all, as we have talked together through this process, and as I have fleshed out more and more about the 7 behaviors that a person with resolve uses on a day by day basis, it's been my desire to give you an insight into what it's done to help me. What that looks like to you, I can't say. I'm not better than you. I'm not better than anyone, but I want you to understand something. I'm not less than anyone either. The only time that someone is better than me is when I allow them and accept that they are better. That's a choice. I will not make that choice. The choice I will make is that I'm on equal footing with anybody. I may not have the knowledge. I may not particularly be skilled in what they do and how well they do it, but I have just as much to offer as they do. And if they don't want to respect the fact that I bring my knowledge and experience and my personal resume to the table, not with arrogance, but with humility, if they can't accept that and respect that, I don't need to be bothered with continuing to seek relationship with that. Choose the people and the things that you engage with. And in the learning process, clearly identify that which helps you, that which benefits you, that which sustains you, and that which helps you to thrive in all aspects of your life. Choose that and divorce yourself. Yes, divorce yourself from anything that has no meaningful benefit to you whatsoever, and anyone who does not respect your boundaries. You don't need to be a part of a group. You just need to be comfortable in your own skin, have a self-confidence that doesn't create arrogance, but it creates a quality that allows you to stand on your own 2 feet, know that you are unique, you are special, you are meaningful, you have a purpose, and therefore you have value. And you associate yourself with the people who see and respect that value. That's what optimal, fine quality, lifelong learning does for you. Thank you. You've been listening to or watching Resolve to Live Forward. Resolve to live forward each and every day. My Gmail is johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. This podcast is made possible by the Buzzsprout podcast hosting platform and is published through Buzzsprout across multiple podcasting platforms. This podcast is also on my YouTube channel, Resolve to Live Forward with John Morrow. Whether you are watching or whether you are just listening, thank you. Thank you and thank you again. I realize that the only way that you reach people who are part of your community and tribe, as my friend Mark Guy would say, is you tell your story, you speak to them, you give them something of value, and they will see that value and they will keep coming back. And the analytics that I'm seeing on Buzzsprout tell me these episodes are being downloaded, they're being listened to, they're being watched. Glad to be with you. Hope your day turns out to be incredible. Thank you for being here with me. I'm John Morrow saying that until we get together again, by the grace of God, this time next week, always remember, above anything else that you do, always resolve, and resolve again to live forward. John Morrow saying so long.